Welcome back to the Revolution of Being podcast. This is episode 5 of our 5-part series on really releasing the ego. So, today we're going to step into a topic that a lot of us are really beginning to, I think, embody, which is learning about non duality. Not only learning, but really beginning to live life through the lens of non duality. And we'll talk more about what that means on this episode. But what if life, like all your little quirks, your calling, your laugh, your pain, what if none of that is separate from the divine? What if the soul didn't come here to escape the human experience, but really to dance with and integrate into this whole process and remember the ultimate truth, which is that we were never separate from the divine, but we are a part of the one that is the all there is. And so it's a little mind bending. So just kind of be with that for just a second. What if we're not separate? And
Yeah.
we're all interconnected. One mind, lots of experiences. So, as we kind of ease through this last chapter, and again, this is a topic I know we're going to come back to more and more. I want to just emphasize, and this is stuff you and I talk about a lot, Jess, that awakening doesn't happen like in some secluded mountaintop in Peru. It's not some monk sitting there meditating all day long, but really awakening is a process that begins with how you walk throughout the world, like your everyday experience, your everyday life. And it really means with your eyes open. And, take a hint from Prince, like third eye, right? Like your third eye open, seeing through the lens of spirit versus our humanness. Also having an open heart and really being grounded on this earth. It's really easy when we're on a spiritual journey to become very ungrounded, have a really hard time integrating the spirit self and the humanness that we all go through. And that's where some of that kind of spiritual, I don't want to say psychosis, but kind of spiritual unwellness can happen when people are just, they have no idea how to be in this world any longer. And everything is about spirituality and their journey. And if you're not awake, then what are you doing? And we really emphasize, even in our own journey, like how do you integrate that knowledge, which is that higher mind knowledge, with the reality that we are on this planet having this experience. And so let's dive into this a little bit more, Jess, because there's a lot we want to cover today.
Yeah. So I had a friend, I think it was a few years ago, she had said, what Jesus really taught us was how to walk between the realms, between heaven and between earth. It's not about being so lofty that we don't have our feet on the ground and we're not experiencing this place here, nor is it being so of this world that we don't have a connection to, I guess, the divine. And that really stuck with me. I was like, wow, I never really thought about it that way. And so I think that's what you and I are really trying to get to. It's not about being all the way up there and it's not about being all the way down here. It's being able to kind of walk in between that space. And within that, we have to really kind of embrace the fact that we still have a self. Our ego is still part of who we are. And it's not about just fully identifying with the egoic part of ourself, but it is about accepting it. It's about accepting that we're still going to have preferences. We're still going to have a voice and opinion. There's still going to be a story, but it's not going to become your entire identity. It's not going to be the thing that when somebody says, who are you? That you're going to be like, well, I'm Jessica and I live in a small town. Like it's not going to be that way, or what I drive or my education, or even, that I'm a mom or a wife or whatever. So these roles are seen more as temporary expressions. They're not fixed identities. And that's kind of the gift of being able to walk between those spaces because we don't have so much attachment. There's not so much attachment. We're kind of in the river, we're flowing, and there's rocks and there's trees, and we're seeing it all, but we know it's just part of that journey, and we're not really anchored somewhere and identifying with what we have or the label that we wear. So this ego still pops up. You're just not really fused with it. You're not fused with it, but you see it as a wave. And instead of being the wave, you're the ocean. And that's such a cool feeling. And you're going to go back and forth. We go back and forth. So the personality becomes more of a tool of the soul instead of a container. And this is all just pieces of the puzzle along the way. And so we're not promoting letting go of what makes you individual or unique, or, you know, it'll all still matter in a way, but it's not going to be the thing that makes or breaks you. That's the lie of the ego. And so, yeah, you can still be who you are, but you're going to walk between the realms. And that's the cool part.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think for those who are like, what the heck are you talking about? When we speak about non duality, it really is existing in a space of non judgment, right? So that means anything that happens to you, whether perceived as good or bad, is just is. It is. That's it. You don't see it with the lens of judgment. You see it as perhaps something that's being triggered, triggering the ego. It's something that is teaching you a lesson in forgiveness, perhaps, or compassion. It's something that's helping you bring yourself back to home, which is in your heart center, that heart within God, within universe, creator, whatever you say. And so the ego's big lie is that we're victims. The ego's big lie is that people are doing this to me. The ego's big lie is that I have to defend myself because the world's out to get me or the government's coming at me. They're taking my rights. The stock market's crashing and the elites are doing this. That's egoic. And you and I hear that. And we have our own moments. Like, we're not perfect in this here and we catch ourselves on it. I had a little spiral on Friday after some medical stuff came up and I'm like, ooh, that's an ego lesson. I am very attached to that. Okay. All right. What's really beneath that? Control, fear, other things that the ego wants to make a big deal. And after I kind of slept on it, the next day I sent you a voice memo and I'm like, I'm fine now. Like, I get it. It's fine. And it was just like this whole like trip up of, we get caught off guard and our ego wants to make these things real and threatening. And that's the big illusion. And I used to tell people, the ego's here to protect you, but it's not. It's here to fuck with you. And it's here to really make you buy into the illusion of these threats even more, to keep you terrified of what's on the other side of this life, or believing that this is all there is and that there's a threat against all of it. And so, to kind of again clarify, it becomes about acknowledging everything that you identify with and as, and being able to surrender those titles, and even as much as the individuality, right? Because the ego really wants us to be individual because we're special. If I'm Angie, my ego was like, well, yeah, you're Angie. You know who you are. You are a human being. If I surrender that, the ego thinks we're dying. The reality is I'm just stepping into a new level of oneness. And so, the ego is going to do everything it can to protect you and keep you in that duality, that I am separate from you, from him, from her. And that's a bunch of lies. And so this is high level stuff. And it might not resonate for some people because it's stuff that's taken you and I some time to kind of wrap our heads around. Like, how can this really be? There's one mind, there's all of us here having this experience. It's all valid, but it's all kind of an illusion, but it's not. Like, it's very trippy stuff. And it probably sounds like we're talking while we're on acid. We're not. But it's interesting. And so when we think about, to kind of go forward again, when we think about characteristics of non-duality, it really is the embodiment of being compassionate without condescension. So dropping the spiritual ego, the I'm awake and they're a bunch of sheep, the I know better than them because I didn't take the, jibby jab, I didn't do this, that, or the other, like the things that we believe make us better than thou, and really seeing the innocence in every single person. And that is one of the fundamentals I learned years ago when I was studying hypnotherapy. And this is a principle of neurolinguistic programming, which is the understanding that everybody is doing the best they can at the time with the resources they have. And I live and die by that. Because while I can get frustrated because I am human still and I'm trying to navigate this and grow spiritually, you know, I still have my moments, but I can also see the innocence when I stop and catch myself and be like, yeah, it's kind of like the Jesus quote. I'm sure I've said it several times, forgive them for they not know what they do. And that's all of us. Like, we don't know what we're doing sometimes or recognize like the the harshness with which we view things or people or whatever or judge. And so it's really, even the people that trigger the hell out of you, they are your greatest teachers. They are your absolute greatest teachers. And it's within that we're really being called to extend compassion. It doesn't mean we have to stay in abusive relationships. I just want to clarify, if you're unsafe, if you're, in a situation that's threatening to your physical body, like, get out for sure. But you can do forgiveness from afar and be like, thank you for teaching me that lesson on, the red flags to look for or whatever. But of course, safety first. Like, let's not be spiritual martyrs here, but it is extending that to everybody. And also having that humility, without feeling like you have to hide yourself. Like, you can be a humble person and spiritual and talk about these things and not have to, like, do it in isolation. You can if you want. You can, but how do we create change? It's by being that change in the world, and that doesn't happen in isolation. But again, you don't have to scream from the rooftops like doing podcasts like Jess and I are doing. You can have your own spiritual journey and not say a word to people, but they're going to notice. They're going to be like, wow, you just seem more peaceful. Like, wow, your skin's glowing. Like, what are you doing? And you just, like, show up differently. And so you can have that, effect too. And it's really that authentic expression without attachment. And that's something that I think so many of us get caught up in. You and I have had that conversation. What is my purpose? Who am I? Like, who is Angie ego, right? Like, what are the innate gifts that this fractal of a soul has on this planet? But it's where we're in our biggest joy. That's it. It doesn't have to be a specific job we're in, a business we have, a title we wear. It's just us being unapologetically ourselves. And who are we that with? Probably our friends and our family the most. Like, you see a side of me that is my most authentic self, that when I try to record a TikTok or video, I'm like, derp. I, like, shut down. I struggle to show that authentic side. When I'm in conversation with people that I feel deeply safe with and super aligned with, like, that is my truest self. And that can show up in my business too. But it's not because it's the hypnosis I do. It's because I'm bringing me, just like you bring you into everything you do. And so it's being that person who just feels in joy. And that's your authentic center, is what sparks excitement in you, what sparks passion and joy. Like, what would you do if you didn't get paid for it and there was nothing else you had to worry about? That's the authenticity starting to rise through. And then again, creating for joy, not for validation. And that's huge, especially with social media and so many things. When you and I were younger, we had Cosmopolitan magazine and 17 and some of these things that were like the idols that we looked to as to how to be as women, like how to be fashionable, how to be whatever. Well, nowadays you have social media showing you everybody's air quote perfection and unrealistic standards, which, by the way, all of that's a bunch of bullshit. But you lose your own creative kind of flow in that. So it's really about, like, what do you like for the joy of simply enjoying it, not because someone's like, that's so cool that you did that. There's no validation necessary when you're in your zone of genius. That might come as a byproduct of being in your state of flow, but don't go seeking it for the external validation. And then, this is one of my favorites: service without martyrdom. It is the ego. The ego is completely in control of being of service. When I give you gifts and I'm like, I just love it because it makes me feel so happy, that's ego. That's totally ego. So whenever you think of doing something in service, ask yourself, is this because it makes me feel good? Because that's ego. Or is it because, and that's also kind of martyrdom, like, I feel good doing this, so I'm going to do this for you. Or is it because, like, you're like, I just know this is going to make your day and I'm not attached to that. That's the way to go about it, right? And I think one of the things we kind of, you and I are mothers. I think of that with my children. When I give to my children, it is completely without attachment or expectations. Like, that is like true unconditional love in my experience, and probably the most, like, unconditional love I've ever felt. We have our partners, and oftentimes our partners, it can come with conditions. If they cheat on us, like, that's a condition, we're out, right? Like, there's things that kind of come with conditional love. My children I don't have conditions with them. And also when I give to them, it's not with the condition of I'm expecting them to say I'm the best mom in the world. I just know that it makes them happy and it makes me joyful, ego a little bit. but it also is fun to be able to see through the children's eyes, like what they're getting. So, also when you're giving and doing things, is it out of sacrifice? It's also out of ego. If you're a people pleaser, I'm going to go volunteer because I feel like I should have to do that. Like a good business owner volunteers for these certain things. A good business owner does, a good mother does. A good mother is the PTA president. That's martyrdom. Do you want to do it? If you don't, that's ego. Like literally, I read that in a book and I was like, hold on, let me reread this again. It's ego if I do something I don't want to do completely because you're popping into people pleasing. And that is completely about ego. You're fearful of something, letting someone down, getting into, the lens of someone in a negative light, whatever. And then this is also something that you and I, work on often too, is like getting into flow without force. Like, and that's back to that fun state. Like, what's fun that we can just do that's a flow state without force? And that's something, especially, I'll bring it back to business ownership. That's an interesting balance because, you and I have talked about money, and like every business owner is faced with scarcity at some point. And when you get in scarcity, the natural egoic tendency is to want to force. You want to market more. You want to get out there more and network. You want to go meet more people. You want to figure out how you can drive business. That's force, right? And then you almost end up working against yourself in that state. Whereas when you're in flow, you're like, you know what? It's going to work out. And I have been challenged with that more times than I care to explain in the last 5 years, really like my whole adult life, but really since becoming a business owner. And things always work better when I surrender it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know how this is going to work out. It will. And I'm going to keep following the fun. And that's been a muscle I've had to build because that did not come naturally to me. I was used to like the blunt force trauma of like forcing things to happen, of structure, of just like predictability. And I really got my butt kicked on like, no, surrender, surrender, stop it. And so kind of look at your life too and see where some of the areas are. Maybe it's in relationships that you're forcing them. Maybe it's in a job that you're not wanting to be in, but you're staying there because it provides really good health benefits. Maybe it's in a diet or like healing. You and I have been there too with healing. Like I will get into my little just hyperfixations and want to fix stuff, and I get into force very easily there. And so just kind of ponder some areas where you might get into force rather than flow because things work a hell of a lot better when you're in flow. And, success is not about becoming someone, but it's really about becoming that clear, clean channel for what wants to move through you. Because you and I are not the genius here. It's divine energy moving through us that allows the authenticity, the genius to flow. It's not our creativity. It wasn't Einstein that figured out E equals MC squared. It moved through him. It wasn't Beethoven that created the works of art he did. It moved through them. So the more we can get out of our own way, dial down the ego, the more we can be a clear channel for that creativity. But that's also where the magic happens. That's where highest alignment occurs, and you are in your purpose as much as you can say you have a purpose or don't. Like you're in purpose when you're a clear channel.
Yeah. So, such good stuff there. I think that, when we think about, I think what will resonate to most people is just the I have to or I shoulds versus the, you know, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm being called and pulled to do. And it's a tough pattern to break. I think you and I both find ourselves there. What human wouldn't? And this is that inner war that starts to kind of manifest. And it's a stage of the game. We've had that conversation with other people where, the ego is sneaky. So when we start to kind of peel back these layers and we're like, oh, suddenly the ego's like, oh, I see another way I can get to you. Let's make you feel like you're betraying yourself. Let's make you feel guilt. Let's make you feel shame. And, you're going to get people in your path that are going to echo that because you're, I hate the word manifesting in a way, but you are sort of putting that out there. And so it's going to mirror that back to you. I've been there over and over again. I get so darn mad, but it's where you're put into a position where you feel like you have to defend or justify, or you have to feel bad. And there's just this inner war, and it actually becomes a war within yourself. And this is where we want to look. If you start to feel that, it's okay. It's okay to just let it happen. It is. It's okay to just be a observer of it. And I love the book by Mel Robbins, Let Them. And I've talked about it before, but this is kind of that theory with a cherry on top. So we're gonna let everything, and we're gonna let ourselves. We're gonna let ourselves do whatever. We're gonna let ourselves sit in the discomfort instead of chasing worth or love or trying to fill the void. We're gonna let others believe what they want about us, about our life, and we're gonna just keep moving forward. And I think you touched on this where it's we're going to show up differently. We don't have to defend. We don't have to justify. We don't have to validate outwardly any of it. If you're really in that moment of you're fighting this battle within you, it can look a little bit like, oh, I can feel the anxiety building up. I can feel that I might be in a position where other people are going to judge me. I'm feeling defensive. I'm ready to defend myself, even though there's no actual threat in the present moment. And you can allow that to happen. And you can just name it and be like, oh, I'm feeling this way because. And you take all of your power back in that because it puts the ego on its heels. The ego isn't pre-writing your story. It's not pushing you into the future. It's not dragging you back to the past. And within that, you can calm that inner war that's happening. And in that, you can sit in the discomfort and you can, instead of like trying to find the external validation that your ego is looking for of worth or love or any kind of tangible item that you think is going to fill the void because that's what the ego is telling you, you can just accept the moment of where you're at, kind of coddle the ego like it's a little kid. Like, I can see why you feel that way. I can see why the past made you feel this way, and you can remember who you are. I think they say it's like 20 minutes of discomfort. If you can sit with something for 20 minutes, cry, yell, do whatever you need to do. But if you don't do anything else and you just be for 20 minutes, usually you can come out of that. And it's kind of like that integration happens a little bit where it's like, I know what you are. I know why you're like that. And now I can just move on. And here's where you find your peace. And again, it goes right back to that really practical book Mel Robbins wrote. She writes it. So if this feels way lofty, go read that book. Just go read that book because that is what it is. I'm going to let them, and then I'm going to let me. Let them, let me. Just get everything in the proper context. And this is where you're going to show up differently. There's going to be a peace about you. And you don't have to stand on the mountainside. You don't have to scream it from the rooftops. You don't have to, some people creep into that spiritual ego, whether they're in the church or they're in this new age community, whatever it is. They get up all in their spiritual ego, but you don't have to do any of that. It is enough for you to just be. It is enough for you to stumble through it. It's enough for you to be quiet and to just show up. And so with this, when you stop arguing with reality, you stop bleeding energy. That's where your power does return. I heard this phrase a long time ago, stop feeding the louche.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop feeding it. Stop giving it snacks. Stop giving it the lollipop for the behavior you don't want. Just stop giving the energy to it and you will stop the bleeding. But it's not going to come without levels of discomfort because the ego is going to death spiral a little bit and it's going to flare up and it's going to make you think that everything is spiraling out of your control because it is so desperate to have its identity. And that's where you have to find your peace. And that's why the work is not exactly easy.
Yeah. And the reminder too, I'll say this over and over again, perception is not reality. So just because you're perceiving something does not mean at all that that's reality. And we've talked about this book before, but Mind Hacking Happiness is a fantastic book when it comes down to beginning to shift your perception of reality. And read the book, get the Audible, whatever you feel called to. I promise you it is worth your investment. And it'd be really cool to interview Sean Webb. I'm going to put that out there into the ethers because he's a really kick-ass guy. And he breaks down this equation of emotion, which is basically how to shift the variables in your perception, your expectations, or your emotions. You can shift any of these variables to create a different outcome. And so, when I walked into mindset work 5 years ago, I had no idea that this was going to be what I came into. The the to have any sense of spirituality and deepen in it is to go into the mind. Like, you have to go deep into the mind because that's where it is. It's not the brain, it's not the meat suit, it's not our heart center, it's the mind. That the thinking, and we can't encapsulate the mind. Scientists can't even figure out where the hell the mind is. They assume it's the brain because the brain has all these neurons firing and things happening, but we can't localize consciousness. There's no way to do that. And so the more we tap into understanding the mind and the workings of the mind, we can then peel back the layers of what we're not to really step into what we are, which is that soul interconnected self. And within that, as we begin to step into non-duality, the line between self and others dissolves. So when we understand that, it means, like, Jess, you and I are the same mind having an experience here. And maybe they're a little bit different experiences because there's this perceived separation, but there's an interconnectedness that my experience is reflecting aspects of yours and vice versa. Things that you're healing in you are healing in me and in the collective. And that's what Gandhi says when he talks about being the change you want to see in the world. Is that when we heal that within us, we heal that within the whole. We're like this, I don't know, it's a bad metaphor, but like a jellyfish with all these little tentacles. There's one jellyfish and we're just all these little tentacles, all of us our own little tentacle feeding back to the whole. And so that was something, and we talked about this a while back on our medicine journeys, was when I had my psilocybin journey. Gosh, almost a year ago now, which is crazy. That was what I fully felt, which is what people talk about with near-death experiences, is the interconnectedness. I was a part of the all that is. And it's hard to explain it in 3D without experiencing it, because we can say, yes, we're all interconnected, but until we experience it, it's really intangible. But I could sense it, and I could sense how actions Angie self was taking were impacting those around me, and how those around me, the things that they were doing, were influencing my journey, but in beautiful ways. None of it was with judgment. It was like, hey, when this thing happened, this set the stage for you to do this. And when you did this set the stage for that to happen. And it was like, oh my God, cool. Like, we are all like this web together. And it was so beautiful. And I'm not saying go run out and do medicine at all. It's a calling. So please, proceed with caution with any of that stuff. Like, it's really a calling and you have to be mindful of what you're walking into. But it helped me really understand non-duality in a very experiential way that human Angie didn't remember. Like, I knew conceptually, I didn't remember. I didn't feel it and know it. And in alignment with that every thought, every word, every action we have and we do ripples out into the totality of all that is. I felt that. I experienced that. And it's funny because last week, so by the time this recording comes out, it'll be a few weeks past, my husband was having a conversation with me, and we were talking about something that was kind of bothering him with a neighbor, and it was petty, stupid. And I just was like, letting him have his little moment. And um, there was an instant karmic clapback where something happened, and it was pertaining to probably that same neighbor he was talking about. And I won't go into the details, but I was like, oh, my kids call it caramel. I'm like, that's caramel. And he starts laughing. He's like, holy shit. Yeah, that definitely was related. And I'm like, yeah, the negative energy you were putting out there about this neighbor and about this experience. Like, and these are people we don't know well. So we love all of our neighbors. If anybody's listening around us, we love you all. But the people that we don't know as well, he was a little bit miffed about some stuff. And I was like, see, like, your action resulted within a half an hour of a very obvious connected clapback of some kind. Like, it was indisputable. And so I'm not saying don't do negative things for fear of retribution at all. Just be a good person. But you can see sometimes your actions result in kind of some quick feedback from the universe. Like either you're on the right track, good job, or hey, we're gonna throw a stick in front of your rollerblade to like just trip you up for a second and like course correct you here so you don't take this too far. Are you good now? Okay, good job. Keep going. And so, just be mindful of the things you're putting out there because there is a reciprocity. And, when you're in this state of non duality, and I experience blips of this, right? So this is not Angie's normal existence 24/7 at all. It's something I'm stepping into a lot more. And I feel a deep peace around that a lot more. And I still have to work at it a lot. But when you're in that state, kindness is not a moral choice. It's just an embodiment of who you are, but also of that reality of seeing yourself, your innocence in others and their innocence in you. And you just, again, see the love that's like shared through all these things. And people might be like, well, how do you do that with people that are horrific, that are terrorists, that are doing terrible things to children, that are, whatever they're doing, stealing, whatever. I read in a book recently, and I very much align with this. We're either acting out of love or in a calling for love. Like we're lacking love. And I believe that people that are out there doing atrocities, it's not because they like are just terrible humans. It's oftentimes a manifestation of environmental, of a lack of love, of a lack of belonging of some kind. And I'm not saying befriend people that are scary and threatening to do this, but again, the way we change this is to see that innocence and begin treating everybody with that reverence, that kindness, that like God-like nature. Treating, what is the story in the Bible? You know it better than I, the washing of the feet. It's like washing of the feet of the people around you, like the homeless person, like seeing the sovereignty and the God in them as much as you would a top CEO bringing in millions of dollars. Like you see the God in everybody. And that results in just this profound sense of love for all things. And within that too, even outside of humans, you care for the planet because you should. And you do it because it's also a part of you. Like everything around, you and I are very connected to nature. You're very connected to animals and whatnot. And it's like that's all an extension of us too. Consciousness. If you've ever studied how trees communicate, how mushrooms and like fungi work, it's magnificent. Like there is an innate intelligence and consciousness in all these things. And like to the point, like I don't kill bugs or animals. Like a mosquito, you better watch out. A tick, you're probably gone. But like other things like that I used to get really triggered by, like little, rodents or animals or bugs or things that would just like irritate me. I shouldn't say the animals. I'm not triggered by animals, but like little pests or spiders. Like I'm just like, no, I see this. I see the divinity in you, and you get to stay there, spider friend. So long as you don't come near my bed, we're good. And I'll gently bring you outside if I have to. And I've had some interesting experiences around some karmic clapbacks with killing spiders years ago, and I just will never do that again, ever, like ever. So, you just see that divinity in everything. And I'm belaboring the point because it is worth belaboring. We are all connected, even those terrifying little bugs you hate, those gross little rats that maybe, around your home or whatever. It's all of God.
It's all connected. It's funny you say that. I name all my houseplants. And so over the years, I never had real plants. I never could keep them alive. And a friend of mine gave me a Christmas cactus, and I thought it was so pretty. So I named it Lulu. My grandma's name is Luella. And so I thought, well, I'm going to name it Lulu. She always had a Christmas cactus. And I have George, a Howie, and a Steve. And they get name tags. And I swear they stay alive because they have energy being poured. I talk to my plants. And horses and animals, horses, we all have a frequency. We all have a field of energy, and horses specifically are 5 times larger than ours, their field of energy. So we are all interconnected, and that's how we're connected. And I thought that was fascinating. I learned that during COVID.
Just wait till you
That
check out dolphins, girl. Have you read Dolphins? Like the
I
magnificence of dolphins.
Yes,
It's
yes.
like,
I mean, it's incredible. And so we all have this energy field. And I think that's the really fun part, is that we don't have to go looking in lofty places for something insanely amazing. You don't have to be on a retreat somewhere. Not that wouldn't be amazing, because that's an experience, but you don't need that. You can be fully human and be fully divine simultaneously. You can cry and mess up and make mistakes, but you just do it from this place of a deeper love and acceptance for yourself, that is just a human error. And in the bigger scheme of things, it's all part of your journey. And that's where you kind of find that you're starting to peel back that veil a bit, and you can feel the change within yourself, because that's how you'll look at it. Here's the thing. And for those of you that go to church, this is not judgment. I'm not passing judgment. I was a very church-oriented person for a very long time, but this is kind of my check. Spirituality can become a bypass. It can become a box that you check. So you go to church and you tithe, and you do it because you feel like you're earning your brownie points, or you're somehow checking this box that's going to pull you closer to your source, to God, to the spirit. And I'm just going to tell you that is your ego again, just trying to ensure you don't go through, damnation. And this lie of like, you're gonna burn in the abyss. And it becomes a bypass. And I think that it happens in both religion, it happens in cults, and it happens in the spiritual community of people that are not part of, the typical church system. It happens everywhere. It's when it starts to become like this embodiment, you will know the difference, because you will literally bear the fruit. And that's what the Bible talks about a lot. And a lot of the older texts, you bear the fruit. And that means that you are sitting with knowledge, not judgment. And it means that when, you're triggered, you stay silent, not out of fear, but just out of compassion, as you had mentioned, because I see God in you. And I also see your experience and your story, and that's okay. You're letting them be on their path. You don't have to prove anything. Your job is not to save them, nor are you a martyr. The fruit looks like that. It looks like just this acceptance. And yet you're strong in your knowledge. And it's that whole perception versus knowledge. It's wisdom and discernment versus judgment. You'll know it. You'll feel it, and it'll feel like a deep peace. It'll just be a peace and a love. And sometimes you're still going to be triggered. So it's just found in the ordinary. I love that. I know you probably go through this too. Like, I can just be having a normal day, totally on autopilot. And I don't know, I walk through my house and the way that the light's like coming in, or while I'm vacuuming, I'm just thinking about all the clearing that's happening, or I'm doing my dishes and I can smell the essential oils or something. And I just think, this is amazing. I just have like this moment of it's amazing. Or if I'm sitting on my humble deck looking at my green yard, and I just have these moments of awe. And you will find that in the everyday. It's when I turn to my money tree, George, and I ask him how he's doing today and why his leaves are kind of brown. I'm like, man, I love you, buddy. Look at you, just a trooper. You're a trooper over there. So this is the ordinary that you're going to feel it in. And again, that's the fruit. That's how you know that you're connected to something that's part of your creation. It's not exactly floating above life. It's really being able to kneel down and kiss it. It's being right there with it. It's being in the dirt, and it's so beautiful. It will rock your world. And so I know a lot of this stuff sounds pretty lofty, and believe me, Angie and I, we dialogue all day. So we're on this roller coaster together. This is not a linear process. It's an awakening of your soul. It's an awakening of the spirit that intertwines all of us. She talked about Like mushrooms are really fascinating because you don't see the circuitry underneath the ground. You don't see that they're all interconnected. But if you think about, if you've ever pulled up a weed and you start to pull it up and it starts to spider out and you realize the root is connected to all these other things, that's kind of what it's like. There's this thread, there's this root beneath that we're all connected to. And so we go through waves, and we're going to go through waves. But the waves that like Angie and I feel, the waves that our listeners feel, the waves of feelings that people across oceans are feeling, we're all part of the same whole. And that's why the world feels so crazy right now. And you see the polarity in that. Like some people are like, like black pill community, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. No, everybody's asleep. No, 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 no. They're not. They're not. They're just feeling the waves of that emotion. And then they're feeling the waves of this enlightenment. And this is all part of us walking each other home. It's all part of that because underneath the surface, we're all connected to the same source. And so I know there's some things that we wanted to talk about that we can help our listeners bring more integration and just reflections in. So, Ange, because this is your wheelhouse with people, prompting them, bringing them through, maybe you can take us through just what some of those practices are to help people in that next stage.
And I just want to say before we jump into that, you did a great job with this too. Like, we can have fun while we're here. In spite of everything happening in the world, you can still have peace. That's your right and responsibility. You don't have to be a martyr to outside circumstances. And in fact, that's doing a disservice to give your energy and attention to everything going on. Like, it really is. And I think there's a lot of propaganda making people believe I have to pay attention though, because if I don't, who will? And if we don't, then things are going to get out of control. But that may not be your job. Your job might be being an activist. Likely not, though. And so, that being said, you can attain a level of peace and enlightenment on this journey to where you can be in this world and not of it. You can be 50,000 feet view, enjoying profound calmness and peace amidst everything happening. And that's, I think when people talk about jumping timelines, 3D to 5D, whatever, those new age things kind of annoy me. That's my ego. But they're really talking about stepping into a new reality where you're not at effect, you're at cause. You're the cause of your emotions, your experiences, your feelings. You're not at the effect of the world any longer. And that's power. I mean, that is true power. And so if it sounds unattainable, know that it's a practice. Again, I still get caught up in my humanness and I will for a long time. I don't know that, Jesus was at that level until probably, a few years before he went to the cross, right? Like, I've read books about his journey and it's wildly fascinating. People think that he was this like perfect baby out the womb, and he had a very human experience and went through a lot of the things that, a lot of us go through, which is judgment, fear, worry, and had his own ego and shadow work. And so don't, think that that's unattainable. And I think too, when you set into the fun of life unattached, enlightenment just happens, and if that word triggers you, I want you to be with that too, because when we talk about spiritual awakening, it's truly the path to enlightenment. And like, that's what this all is. And we will all get there. All of us, every single person is going to get there. And so, in part, what's the rush? We're going to get there anyways. Have fun. Like, don't be so focused on your evolution and growth that you forget to smell the flowers. You forget to be, and just be present, smelling the essential oils in your home, the little birds chirping outside, or talking to George. Like, we get to have fun while we're here too, and not take everything so darn seriously. So, some of the practices to think about if you're like, all right, I see what you're saying, I get it. How do I actually do this? So, just, if you want to take out a pen and paper or pause this to write this stuff down, a good journal prompt to start with is, where am I still trying to prove something? Like, right? Maybe it's as a parent. Maybe it's in your field of work. Maybe it's, a PR you want to hit for your run times or whatever. And so just kind of ponder, what am I still, trying to prove? And then what would it be like to let that go? Because I'm like, freedom, freaking freedom, to not have that. Hooah. Amazing. because then you realize like that's not who you are. So I'm not trying to give you the answer here, but really when you get it, it's going to be like, holy crap, it feels lighter. Why did I care about that? Like I'm so much happier. So just think about that. Um, and then another practice to try is, before you're starting a conversation or a task today, just kind of pause and like whisper to yourself, this too is God. Doing these dishes, this too is God. Having a moment with my children when I pick them up today, this too is God. These little beings are God. The flowers outside are God. This is all God. Like we are all God. So kind of pausing, even the most menial things, your shower water, like, yep, the water washing over me, this too is God. So that's a great one just to bring you to the present moment, reflect on things. And again, your meat brain might not quite get it yet, but with repetition, with time, this is going to sink in deeper and deeper. And I think of the books that you and I read years ago. Some of them I'm like, what the hell? And like I read them now and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, for sure. Like ding, 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 that makes so much sense. But I wasn't at the level even 3 years ago for some of the content I now can really deeply embody. So it's a practice. It's a continual practice every single day. And then just contemplate, what would it look like to live each moment as though the divine were expressing itself through me, right? If you were in a conversation with someone who triggered the hell out of you, how would it be if the divine were channeling through you? If you saw them through the lens of innocence, the lens of love, compassion, anything you're doing, that can be applied to anything. So what would it be like? And it kind of goes back to the 90s bracelets. What would Jesus do? Like, that's a great thing. Like, what would Jesus do? He wouldn't like, be mumbling under his breath, what a dumbass. He'd be like, I see the innocence in you, my child. Like, I'm sorry you're suffering. That's it. He wouldn't be taunting you. He wouldn't be torturing you. He wouldn't be chastising you for learning. So just kind of think about that, or get your WWJD bracelet back out. I don't know, get a tattoo. So those are, I'll let you close, Jess, but I think those are just some great prompts to kind of have some tangible takeaways. And again, if you guys want to go deeper into this stuff, drop us an email or a message because we can talk about this stuff for days. It is my zone of extreme fun and I just love it to no end. But also I love walking clients through these processes because what I didn't realize when I was getting into hypnosis was that is at its core shadow work. And that is what keeps us from our true self. And so if you're called to do that in the realm of your own personal growth, reach out. I offer free consultations and I'd be happy to talk with you. And, I know, Jess, you work with the conscious business owners and you're also a phenomenal like personal coach too. So, if you're looking for conscious business leadership in terms of how to bring this energy into your business, because as business owners, I will tell you, you have such a great reach and influence that you need to be doing this work. Sorry, I'm going to just say that. Like, I don't want to shame, but you got to be doing this work because that's how change happens. And business owners are ones that have a tremendous amount of influence in the world.
Yeah, thanks for that. You're right. I don't think there is separation between our individual journeys and that of business owners. I keep just saying, if you want to be relevant in the upcoming decade, this is where it is. You're going to have the most aligned people and your businesses are going to do amazing things, not just for you, but for the world. And it all starts with everything that we just covered. And so just remember, in closing that awakening is not a single moment. Don't get so impatient for it. It's not a light switch coming on, even though at times it's going to feel like that, but you're just one layer in. It really is this lifetime, and it is about remembering. I think you said that in the beginning, and we talked about that before we came on. Our experiences are helping us remember that we're not just this robotic meat suit driving a certain car or having a certain job. It's about all of it. It's all of it. It's all of it together. And the remembering will start to be a part of how you breathe, how you walk, how you love. It's looking at somebody that triggers you and letting the ego settle down to just see the beauty within that person because they were created from the same thing you were. We are not separate. You're not separate. I'm not separate. We never were. There's this just egoic lie that we've all dove into, and it's come from the magazines, as you mentioned, in the media, and all these things we were taught to chase, all the distractions. But we're not separate. We're intertwined. And the more you live as if that's true, because it is, life will bring you there, I promise. The more you live in that truth, the more beauty, peace, and power that you unlock for yourself, but you unlock it for the whole world, because we are a collective. And the more we do it for ourselves, the more we help others do it. So if you're a parent, if you're a leader, if you're a daughter, just let that humble you. The more you embody that, the more others will see it, and they will follow suit. They will follow suit. So thank you for walking through this whole 5-part series with both of us. I think that this is one where if you listened all the way through, finish this one and go back and hit start on the first one, because I truly believe what we shared here, even though it can feel kind of like a lot right now, I think if you were to listen to all of it through and go back and listen again, you will have aha moments. I know I felt them as we were going through it. Like, this grew me. So my hope and prayers and wants for everyone listening is that it's going to keep unfolding for you and in you. And I hope that you find it in both the mysterious and the miraculous, because it's incredible when you get there. So thank you for being with us, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.